Alan's traveled in 35 hours, and we're...
Goes on forever.
This is considered the toughest bike race in the world.
I need energy.
Okay.
I'm dying.
I want this to be over.
5 cyclists have dropped out. Not Alan, though. Today we spoke with Alan.
After I qualified for Race Across America, I seriously began thinking about giving RAAM a try. I knew it'd be hard. In fact, I knew it had been ranked the toughest race in the world by Outside Magazine. I think that's probably a lot of the reason I wanted to do it, to compete against the world's best, just see if I could. I started emailing other guys that have done the race and trying to find out everything I could from them, see just how hard was it. I had a personal coach, John Hughes, out in Boulder, Colorado, and he put together a program that had me on the bike pretty much every day for about 8 months, a lot of miles. And physically, he had me ready. I showed up at the start line thinking I'm ready to go. But mentally, I didn't know what to expect. All the research I'd done, didn't seem to prepare me for what was to come. Because when you put the physical and the mental aspects of RAAM together, I had no idea. Absolutely not a clue how hard this race really was. But I was about to find out.
It's October, a bunch of different types of... One seat of the van. Where's the other two?
3, 2, 1, there we go! The 2002 Inside Race Across America has begun!
I don't think RAAM became real to me until I got to Portland. I had no idea the magnitude of what Alan had been training for months. Alan did everything well, so what was the difference with this? But when I saw the competition, guys from Austria, Germany, Brazil, Italy, these were world-class athletes. OLN did interviews. It was just amazing. All of a sudden I realized Alan was going to travel 3,000 miles with no sleep, very little sleep, and it hit me hard. I was overwhelmed.
This is Alan after we passed Monument. We're moving along. He just passed Freddie Barag, and Fabio is behind him. We're moving along at a good pace. He's feeling good.
I knew a little bit about Alan's character and his makeup and his drive and his ambition. But going into the race, I was thinking, this guy from little town of Clallam, Washington, is going to take on the best in the world. And, I just didn't know if he was ready for that. I've seen him do some incredible things in our lifetimes together. We've gone backpacking together and camping, and I've seen him going up a treacherous mountain pass named Asgard Pass into the Enchantment Lakes with literally 3 backpacks strapped to his back to help up other people that couldn't make it up that pass. So I knew he had it in him physically to overcome such a challenge. But could he compete against the best in the world? I was really leery, and I was fearful that he wouldn't feel right about himself if he couldn't compete. So I was excited and scared at the same time.
This guy up here that we're following is getting really bossy. He hands us stuff. He asks for stuff. Do this, do that. Don't do this, don't do that. And if he was so smart, he'd be in here, not out there.
When I decided to crew on this race, I thought, well, crewing, that won't be too bad. We'll be out there watching him, riding with him, and have some time. And I brought a nice long book to read, and I think I read maybe 5-6 pages out of the book. I was so exhausted and so tired, and I spent so much time focused on, okay, what do I got to take care of now? Do I got to get onto the computer? Do I got to get the information in? Do I have to update Alan on where things are? How's he doing on calories? Can I figure out how to get something made? And so I spent so much time thinking and focused on this race that there was very little time for anything else on the whole race. It was just really focused on what was going on. Intense.
18 miles an hour shoe change. He's nuts. Take the left shoe off. We're doing a left shoe exchange. We're not far from the border here. Border of Utah. Shoe coming down. 10 minutes before. Pedals. Kicked in one. Shoe. This is the same shoe that had a little bit of a foreign matter. Well, not really foreign. It came from him originally. Just before we had to change some screws in it. That added a little character to the shoe.
Good, Alan. Welcome to Utah, Alan. Good job, Alan. Keep it up, bud.
Oh man, when we rolled into Brigham City, it was good to be there because we could give the crew relief, but they weren't there and we didn't know exactly what room Alan was in.
Crew A had determined that I'd more than likely sleep for 3 hours, which was a pretty good guess because I was really dragging going into Brigham City. But an hour and a half, I was up. I was ready to go.
I looked at Alan's room and his door was open. The van was gone. Alan's door was open. There was a slight fear. It was a God fear, but it crept into my heart.
So I put on my dirty clothes and here comes Mickey and I said, "Hey Mickey, where's my bike?"
I froze. It's not here. It kind of spooked me a little bit.
I was quite upset at this time. My crew had been doing a great job, and they did a great job the whole race, but this was not a shining moment by any means. But, it wasn't too long till they showed up, and we found out that Lau and I believe it was Fabio, had passed me, and, I was ready to go chase him down. There was a 36-mile hill out of Ogden, Utah, and I figured I was going to be able to catch him on that hill. So, crew got me on my bike, and we were up the hill we went.
He passed Stephan again, about 10 miles down at the bottom of the hill, and all Stephan could do was just sit there and stare at him.
It's getting degrading for him, huh?
Yes, it is, because the only time he gets around Alan is if Alan stops to sleep, and we had him sleep 3 hours this morning, and during that time, Stephan and Fabio got past him. We haven't seen Fabio yet. Hey, we're having a good time here in the van, but it is extremely inspiring to watch this man ride up these hills and riding across America on a bicycle. We joke about it being insane, but really it is inspiring to see disciplined people physically, mentally, and one thing we were concerned about on this was wondering about the mental challenges, and we can say this far into it, Alan is at 110%. I mean, this guy, he knows already most of the turns before we're there. He knows what's going on around him. We've heard stories about being delusional at times. We haven't got there yet. He is right on top of everything.
One of the exciting points for us, for the crew at the time, was
the passes. And one of them coming out of into Utah was, I think it was our second time when we passed Stephan. We passed on by. We didn't really get a really good look at him, but it was fun to pass, because sometimes you would go for hours or days sometimes and not see anybody, or at least another person in the race. So all the concept of a race was hard to, you just had to imagine people back there, people up there, but you didn't really have that contact. But so when you did have it, it was exciting. And then not too long after passing Stephan, we came across what I think when they filmed the Italian bogey, and one of my personal exciting things was to pass Fabio.
Italian bogey at 12 o'clock.
Is Fabio up there?
Yeah. We're going to smoke an Italian.
Let me see that real quick.
Okay, he sees him.
Maverick, you have an Italian bogey at 11 o'clock.
I don't know why. It was a pride thing, an ego thing, because he came across on the initial interview on day one, kind of cocky, but he'd done this before, and I thought, well, one goal was to beat Fabio, so to pass Fabio was a lot of fun. We came on him, and he didn't really look like he just looked like he was on a stroll. He wasn't putting much energy, it didn't seem, compared to what Alan was doing in the, no comparison. But to be able to pass him was fun. And I think the film crew was there too, which added to the excitement, because I think they knew it must have been coming up, so they were ready. And a lot of fun added to made it a race to be able to actually pass somebody.
This is a long hill. 36 miles. And you got about one left.
By the way, Alan is doing the speed limit of 55 miles an hour. He's flying down the steep hill. We're ready to come into time station 14.
After we got over Monte Cristo summit, we had a really fun descent going down into eastern Utah. And but it started getting dry and deserty, which is just not what I like. I really like the mountains. I like the climbs. But we went through the desert and some wind and some heat and got into Wyoming. And about nighttime, we pulled into Manila. And after Manila, there were some serious hills, probably the steepest hills on RAAM, I'd say. And it's probably a good thing I was doing them at night for two reasons. One, it was cooler, and it was just going to be scorching there in the day, and I don't like the heat. And the second reason is I couldn't see how big they were. You know, I just kept going up and up and up. And but hey, it's RAAM. You got to do it.
Well, we're finally catching up with Peter and Mickey on Crew B, just coming out of Manila, and we can see the other crew way up on the hill. And we're thinking they're not very far ahead of us, but we keep going and going and going, and it's just a monster hill.
After we got to the top of this hill and you could see the city down below, that was just really cool. And it was also nice to know that the climbing was over. But that was a steep hill coming down, and I had been tired from the day's ride, and I was actually falling asleep a little bit coming down around those sharp, steep switchbacks.
We get to the top of it and look down, and you can see the city probably 15 miles below. And kind of, well, we better do a brake check, Alan. So we do a quick check of everything and get his good headlight on, and he heads off the hill. And it is steep. And we're burning the brakes up. Jim's driving. I keep telling him, get down into second gear, because we can just smell the brakes. And Alan's flying. He's just flying. And we're radioing him, be careful, switchback coming up, be careful. We finally get off there, and Alan gets to the bottom, and he says, you know, guys, I was falling asleep on that. Not good. Not good on that hill at all.
I don't know. I was just kind of drifting off and really didn't know too much about what was going on. But I was really looking forward to getting to Vernal, because that's where we were going to sleep for the night, or for an hour and a half anyway, before we headed off into Colorado.
Colorado. Welcome to Colorado. It's desolate. There's bugs all over the road. Crickets. That long. And there's literally millions of them everywhere. The road's red. They stink. Try and run over them. They're all over. But it's windy, 25 mile an hour headwind, just constant, no let up. it just keeps blowing and blowing. And Alan's getting a little frustrated here. It's supposed to be an easy, no climb, 83 miles, and it's just, we're struggling.
The wind, just a killer.
The wind, and it just goes on forever. We're talking about 150 miles of relentless headway.
Crewing for Alan was an experience. Alan had everything planned out for his crew, from the where things were in the van to how to change his wheels, when to change him, when to give him a windbreaker, when to give him water, when to give him food, where the food was, where his vitamins were, where his energy drinks were, and things like that. And it almost got comical at times because it would be a challenge for us to keep everything in place and make sure that it was right there for the next crew the next time. And in the heat of battle, believe me, it wasn't a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination. Things were moving very, very rapid paced inside the van. Even while Alan was out riding, we had a lot of stuff to do, keeping track of his intake on his fluids, his electrolytes, his sodium, etc. It almost became too much even for 3 people in the van at times. So it was a real challenge.
We're in Colorado right now. We're on our way to Walcott, and we were watching a thunderstorm. And Alan, what was Alan? He's riding his bike.
Where? This is the smart crew.
Well, we had a laptop in the van, set it up actually with a spreadsheet that Alan put together. I'd calculate calories based on different types of food, water, snacks, and anything in between. And whenever he consumed, we entered it into the spreadsheet. It auto-calculated and essentially told us if Alan was basically on track for calorie counts.
Alan does this slowly and then with his gloves on, of course, and he goes. And then we run over. And he goes. Stop.
You doing okay? So Alan stopped because he was coughing too hard. You know, Alan, we were actually just in the van videotaping. Mickey was showing us what you do with the green glove and the can of green goo.
Oh, yeah. After a long and boring day going through the dry desert and wind out of Vernal, Utah, we came into Steamboat Springs in the afternoon, and that was just gorgeous. I was happy to be back into the mountains, some cooler air, a little bit of rain, just going into the afternoon hours. And there was a preem that they offered there from Steamboat Springs to Walcott. Originally, I wanted to try that because I really do like the mountains, but I knew that it was too early to get some rest and that I wouldn't be able to go the whole distance without it. So we just pressed on and figured I'd sleep at Walcott.
Just keep riding. Oh, now that was cool. I hope you got to see that.
On the first climb of what they call the triple climb, that was it. I was just getting really tired, and I knew that I wasn't going to make it to Walcott. And I had a hill to go down the other side, and I didn't want to fall asleep on another windy road. So I just had to pull over. I saw my brother on the side of the road. He was rooting me on. Him and Jim had driven back from where they were staying up ahead, which is where I was trying to get to. But I don't know, they just sensed that they needed to come back, and I saw him, and I just pedaled right into his arms, and I said, I'm done. I can't go anymore. So they put me down there in the van, and Mickey and Peter stayed there to protect me.
It was like day 4, day 5. Me and Peter decided that we'd sacrifice and wait with Alan. In Walcott, elevation is like 9,000 feet. It was freezing that night. We were in shorts and a couple of jackets. We were cold. Well, after the crew left, we were sitting there, And all of a sudden we start hearing things creeping around us. And we're like, this isn't cool. So we picked up like hundreds of rocks and we just started chucking them. It was, I don't know, probably something similar to like napalm, just without the fire. It was all over. It was horrible. But we felt like we took care of that. So then me and Peter decided that we were going to try and stay warm.
It was probably about 45 degrees, but it felt like 25. We had shorts on, which we thought we were going to be fine in, but the temperature dropped. To keep warm, Mickey and I just walked back and forth on the abandoned road, probably the entire night or the entire 3 hours. Maybe 4 vehicles came by, but we started getting really cold, and so we started walking faster. And we desperately wanted to get in the van, but I kept telling Mickey, no, we can't take a chance of waking Alan up.
So we decided we were going to try and sneak into the van. Big mistake. Well, we snuck into the van, and we were all creepy and quiet, and it was the whole crocodile hunter thing, like, here we come, slowly, we open the door. Watch out for the predator, because he can bite hard. So we all sneak in, and we shut the door. And let me tell you, it felt like heaven. It was warm. And then we fell asleep. Then the crocodile hunter realized that he'd fallen asleep in a predator's lair. Let me tell you, Peter started snoring. It was horrible. I hear, and it woke me up. And Peter, sleeping right through it, obviously. And I hear Alan go, who's snoring? I was like, oh, poop, I'm in trouble. I go, Peter is. So I narked on Peter. I'm sorry, Peter. I'm so sorry. But that was so bad.
All told, we were out on the road about 3 hours. Alan was down for probably just under 3 hours, which was 2 sleep cycles, which we actually felt real good that he got the 2 sleep cycles. I think it was the first time in RAAM he had done that. He woke up very groggy, very sore. I remember when he went to sleep, he had a lot of pain in his foot, especially since I had stepped on his toe. But we were glad to see he was up, especially since we could get back in the van and get warm. But he was in a lot of pain. The effects of RAAM were kicking in.
As we got into the race, I knew that this was going to be a bear. I mean, it was going to be as hard as anything I've ever seen. Eco challenge, whatever. So did I think he would actually make it through? Based on what I've known about his ability to overcome pain and fight his way through and his determination level and his ambition, I knew he'd get through it physically. But what I wasn't prepared for was the mental highs and the lows.
A note to myself, you will never do this race again. We're just shy of Walcott. Stopped just from exhaustion. Slept in the van. Still got another 1.7 miles to go to the top of the hill before I get to go down and climb 2 more big hills today. And I don't think I'm the only one that's exhausted. I think they said everybody stopped. But I've got a swollen whip too. Yes. That it'll go away. Anyway, don't think about this again. This is hard. That is all.
Now he just got over the highest point of RAAM, the Continental Divide, 10,400 feet.
He threw the bag and then he pointed to it like, pick it up.
Yeah. And I ran and I'm winded.
Riding, it's really not much on it. It's sore. But sometimes my butt took a while to get sore.
I figured
It took me a while to get going this morning.
I figure when you hit hills, you get off the seat, that's not going to hurt as much. You know what I mean? And on the flat, it's going to start getting painful.
Can you get a little of the chain loop in my cleats, please? Okay, yeah.
Alan has to take a drug test. He's too good as a rookie, so they're concerned. Isn't that right, Larry?
What's that?
Said Alan has to take a drug test because they're too concerned that he's that good as a rookie.
They're a little concerned that he's doing really well, and they want to make sure that he's not doing it on some type of stimulating drug or whatnot, so they're going to take a drug test. And we don't have any concerns.
Alan, be proud.
I'm driving. We just had to switch a few minutes ago, shake things up a little bit. Gets a little tiring sometimes doing the same thing all the time.
How's Alan doing?
Right now, he's struggling just a little bit. We're at the end of this leg. He's got about a mile or two left, and got a pretty severe headwind coming at him. So
Demoralizing.
It's pretty demoralizing. Yeah.
Alan's cranking up hill right before Westcliff. Running really strong right now. Looking good.
I'm going to try to get a picture of him as he's going up. We're going to look back on him. Look at him, he's smiling.
Way to go, Alan. Looking good. Good job, man. Way to climb.
Looks like we're at the top of the world again.
After we got about halfway through the race and had made it into Colorado and made it over the Rockies, which was a big hurdle, obviously, and started going into eastern Colorado when he started having his problems with his neck, and his crotch was starting to bother him, and the headwinds were getting on him. I was really concerned whether or not we were going to finish the race.
We're about 7,000 feet now. Alan is fighting a serious headwind still. It's I think it's going to be like this on the next leg too. Just 25, 30 mile an hour headwind. It's bad.
We were riding from Leadville down to Walsenburg. That's the highest place in the whole race, down to the halfway point of the race, and we ran into a real stiff headwind in that. And I noticed Alan was down in a tuck continually for that whole 11 hours. He was down in a tuck, bucking a stiff breeze, pretty stiff breeze. It would be like riding in the eastern Washington like he normally does, his 20 to 40 mile an hour winds. Between the last time station and Walsenburg, Westcliff to Walsenburg, he pulled over and said, grabbed the duct tape, and he pulled the bungee cord out of the back, and he wrapped the duct tape around his waist. I'm, what is he doing here? And I'm going to put the bungee cord on my helmet and hold my head up with the bungee cord. I knew then it was pretty serious how much effort it was for him to control his neck and his head. And I looked at it and I said, that's got to be awfully uncomfortable.
One of the things that I always look for in something like this is to try to make some spiritual application, and there can be dangers in trying to spiritualize everything, but this was certainly something that the word that would jump out at me often concerning this race was perseverance, and it's just the going hour after hour, day after day, and not letting up.
A RAAM rider has to pretty much learn to do everything, or quite simply live on their bike. After the scorching sun, and in parentheses, often felt as though RAAM was nothing more than a war.
And Alan's verse is a good verse in Acts 20:24, and about finishing the race. And finishing the race requires perseverance, and we saw it firsthand.
I think that at every RAAM rider experiences some kind of meltdown in which the crew needs to give them such a good pep talk that the rider breaks down in emotional tears, telling the crew how much they love them, and the crew telling the same thing to the rider. Thus, this is why such a tight bond is formed between rider and crew on RAAM. The crew has to make the rider believe they can accomplish such a very difficult goal as finishing or winning RAAM.
We believe!
We believe. Alan is doing like 27 miles an hour. He's just doing like 32.
Uphill.
Man's a freaking animal. And he's talking.
No, we did not.
No, I'm recovering from my carpal foot.
Yes, look, it's swollen.
How's it feeling?
His foot is
It's sore.
He's trying to
And it's just from lifting it up like that. It's right there. over. And so I'm been thinking, what could I do next time, heavens forbid, there be a next time, how I would do my training for RAAM. But the man is doing fine. He worked hard. The last leg was really interesting to watch because when he was riding the bike, instead of being vertical, I don't know the degrees, but he's riding about like this, and then every now and then be a gust. So then we find ourselves when driving or sitting here, we're leaning with him in sympathy. But you know, it was rough. Then he said later that he endured it though, because he knew he had 150 miles opportunity for riding with a tailwind, which is the biker's dream, and he's having fun out there now.
As we sneak up on our prey slowly, we're getting ready to attack him. I hope Alan doesn't get mad as we joke around.
Yeah, we actually are serious when we're back here behind him.
And watch, this is kind of a demonstration. Just imagine us as a predator, and that as prey. Alan is prey. What we do is we slowly creep behind him without his knowledge. And then when the time comes, we pounce and we get our prey.
I don't know, do you like your meat fatty? Because you ain't getting it there.
No, ain't no fat on this boy. On this boy there isn't. On that guy right there, no way. Oh, there's the breaking of the sun. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? This is some of the most beautiful sunrises I've ever seen. Yeah. How are you feeling? Neck holding up?
My neck collapsed about 130 miles ago. But I worked through a crosswind to get to a tailwind, and I'm hoping that when I get some rest, my neck will recover enough. If not, this is going to suck for the next 1,300 miles or so. But oh well. It's working. It's a good idea that Jim had.
We built this aerodynamic little box for him to rest his chin on. We put some pad on top of it, got it in there. We stopped him, taped it to his aero bars, and put that on and started riding with it.
So, any other aches and pains in your body?
Well, I'll give you 3 guesses.
Okay, we've got that one covered. Any others?
Other than that, I'm pretty good.
Cool.
I couldn't imagine going through this section in the daytime. You see that over there? 150 miles of that.
Before Alan left for the race, I thought I'd have lots of time to hang out with friends, go see my family, work on some home projects, but when I got home, it became RAAM Central. I'd run out on the internet 20 times a day to find out, where is he? Where is he? How's he doing? And Peter would call me, at least 2 times a day and let me know, and it was so cool to get fresh updates and to call people and say, this is what's going on with Alan. And we would pray and pray and pray. And people would call. I probably got 20, 30 calls a day to find out what's going on with Alan. It was amazing. It was so awesome. That's all I did from the time I got up till when I went to bed. And then Alan had this map put up on our wall of the route. And so I decided, since I couldn't be with Alan, I wanted to be with him in some way. So I started putting things up on the wall. Hundreds of emails came in, and I'd print them and put them up on the wall. I would check on Alan's stats, and whenever a time station would change, I would print that out and put it up on the wall. I had pictures of Alan. I had articles. I had reports from Danny Chu. It was so awesome, and people would come over just to look at the wall. And my daughter, Kimberly, she would want to pray for Daddy throughout the day, and she'd say, how's Daddy doing? And so we would pray for him. We'd pray for his neck that hurt. We would pray that God would keep his mind alert. She would pray always, every time, please, Jesus, keep Daddy safe.
Certainly, in a 3,000-mile race, it's exhausting, it's tiring, and then sleep was minimal, an hour and a half here and there, not very often, and Alan would get really tired, and just physically, emotionally, and spiritually as well, and so sometimes it use this as an opportunity for prayer. We try to take care of all the details, so Alan wouldn't have to worry about when he woke up there would be there. So that just try to get him to to rest. And part of that, when he was going out, I would just seize that opportunity for prayer. We joked about there was areas of the body that probably hadn't been prayed for before, but in this race they were receiving severe discomfort. So let's just say we prayed from top to bottom, literally.
What was really striking was the highs and then a low right there afterwards. You know, you'd be going along really hard, really strong, and everybody'd be pumped and excited, and you'd be say, "Hey, we're catching up. We're going to catch the next guy. We're going to get into second, or we have a chance to even win this thing." So you'd be all excited and really pumped up, and then all of a sudden, you know, another 20 miles down the road, fatigue would set in, the lack of sleep would set in, and it would just literally knock the wind out of your sails. And, you know, he'd get tired and he'd need to sleep, and then he'd felt like he'd slept too long and he was losing time, and then we'd be down, and then he'd have the neck problems, and then he'd have the foot problems, or the Achilles problems, or the crotch problems, or what have you. And you'd go up and down and up and down and up and down throughout the race, and it was really trying, both on Alan and the crew, to try and keep the mental aspect of it as positive as possible.
So you talked to Teresa yesterday. Did that help you out? Of course, that's kind of a loaded question since I'm recording. You gotta watch your answer.
Yeah. After this neck thing happened, I was pretty much ready to give it up. But and then with all the headwind, and then we caught a tailwind, and I've gone, I don't know, been going for about 21 hours now, I think.
So when you were planning for RAAM, did you ever envision you would have the mental and the physical pain like you have to go through here?
It knew it'd be hard, I just didn't know how hard. Didn't expect this. Still got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
He was snoring. As Miriam and Rob directed, the legs are elevated. And we've had this problem doing that because when we put rope around his ankles and heist him up over the limb, I don't know, he kind of thrashes around a lot. So we beat him with a stick, but we still haven't got any candy out of him when he's hanging there. But he finally goes out, and that's what matters.
We're in Oklahoma. We're getting blown away by the wind, but we're giving it all she got. I'm gonna spell Oklahoma. O-C-K. Wait. O-A-K.
We're welcoming the man to Oklahoma.
Doing awesome! We got some things for you. Welcome to Egypt. Head in! Woo! 1,300 miles left!
So then came that fateful night. We were biking along, and he's complaining about it, and he said, with the headrest, so let's decided he wanted to go back to the bungee cord. And I said, okay. And so we hooked the bungee cord onto his waist and up to his helmet. We put the pad over the shoulders. And I just said, that's going to be pulling too hard, because every time we would stop, he'd say, we got to pull it tighter. It's not holding my head up enough, not holding my head up enough. And I could just see it pulling back, straight back on his neck, creating a great deal of pain, I was sure. So I said, we got to do something different about this. And I said, we got to get that head so it's not being pulled back, but being held up. So I thought about that for a while, and I said, I know what we got to do. We just got to build sort of a hammock idea and suspend it off like a fishing pole. And I said, I know what I'll do. I'll start building out of this rope. And I built him a crisscrossing chin strap that the rope came down and it had a knot, went over the other side, had a knot, came back, had a knot into that, and came back and went up to here. So we had this makeshift chin strap, and I figured I could put some foam pad on that, and I'll take that up there. But then when I was testing it out in my angle, then I realized I needed something in the forehead, because if it was all on the chin, this one of the largest part of the weights of your body is your head, and if that's hanging out over your chin and you're trying to catch it all, that's going to just be gruesome on your chin. So I said, we got to get something out in the forehead. So I built a pad and with a rope on it, and I said, now to keep it there, I'm probably going to have to tape it to his helmet or something, but at least we can get it up there, a rope on his forehead and on his chin, go up, and then go up to this, some sort of support up there.
Jim has this idea to help Alan's neck, but we're in the middle of the night, middle of Oklahoma, and the 7-Eleven just does not carry what we need. And so we're searching. Alan's frustrated. It's the lowest point of the race for me. Here's my best friend struggling, and I had no idea what to expect here, and we're seeing it right now. Alan comes up, throws his $3,000, $4,000 bike down, and I'm like, uh-oh, we better get this thing together here right now.
He was real frustrated. We'd made several stops, and this was making the night drag on, and the crew was frustrated. And he said, in a kind of a moment of disgust, he kind of tossed his bike into the ditch and sat in the car and said, can't make it. There's just no way. There's something to that effect. I'm just not going to be able to do it. Now another 1,200 miles, and I can't hold my head up. There's no way. And this is it. And he sat down in the vehicle, and the other guys are sitting there rubbing him and talking confidence. And I said, Alan, I got an idea.
So Jim tells me he has an idea. I've been battling this Schirmer neck, and I'm at the lowest point so far. And I couldn't imagine going any lower than this. I just throw my bike down. I was ready to just throw in the towel as well. And I don't know, somehow they got some confidence in me and said they were working on something. They're gonna hold my head up with a fishing pole, basically. And I was like, well, we've tried everything else, why not? So, but here we are in the middle of Oklahoma, middle of night. I don't know if you've been in Oklahoma, but nothing grows there. I mean, where are you going to find some kind of stick or support to hold my head up? I mean, that's just a godforsaken place. I don't want to go back. But anyway, they decided to look around, and what we were needing was a miracle. And it's probably a good thing that as many people were praying for us as there were, because I don't see how they could have come up with a solution and happened to have found what they needed right then and there.
Let's look around a little bit more. And I walked around in the ditch for a while with flashlights, and I looked up and down and wasn't finding anything. So I went over to the other one, looked down in the grass. Sitting right in the grass was this surveyor stake, 1.5 inches wide, 3/8 of an inch thick. I flexed a little bit, said, this is a pretty good strong one. It's been out there for a while, but it looks stout enough. Let's give it a shot. And I said, Alan, I got something here. So he got back on his bike a little bit, and I started duct taping together, our next year sponsor, duct tape. Started duct taping this stuff together, trying it out on myself, trying to make sure that it was going to work okay. And then we pulled him over again and took his helmet off, and I started duct taping that to the helmet, put him into it, and it looked like he was in some sort of straitjacket, held his chin way up in the air, and looked really uncomfortable. I said, oh my goodness, what have I done here? Anyway, put him back on his bike. He rode for about probably 5 minutes, and I asked him, okay, how's it going? And he gave me a thumbs up, a big thumbs up. It was a real positive thumbs up. And the first time in that whole night and for 2 or 3 days that he's been battling this Schirmer's neck, that he said, thumbs up. I mean, it was going to work. It was a real positive signal. And boy, did I feel good about that. And I'm sure the whole crew, we were back in the van just screaming, yeah, we got it. We got it. It was cool.
Alan is being interviewed by the film crew right now. And he's definitely going to be sponsored by duct tape next year. If you can look real close, we have a stick on his back holding his head up like a fishing pole. Maybe we should extend the stick and put a piece of pizza on the end of it. But seriously, I think we got this. I think we have Schirmer neck beat. He's positive mental attitude, and doggone it, we're headed to the next time station. We're not going to stop. Going to blow right through. He's doing real good. Battling some problems, but this is great America.
Hey, I am filming you guys to show you in your rummy state. I'm right on you, Jim.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think I've laughed that hard in a long time.
Yeah, that's good.
Guaranteed that'll be on OLN.
They're staying with him for a long time.
Well, see, they're going to run a theme with Alan because they interviewed him there when he had the whole mechanism on his handlebars.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to show the progression of Alan's inventions.
Who's the mastermind of duct tape world?
What do you think, Jim? Where are we at?
We are. Heck if I know. Where are we at?
Hold on.
Oh, we're at
Enoch. Get great.
Enid.
Yep.
The question is, let's get a consensus on what time we want to get him up. He went to sleep at 6. Kish or Lau was 3.5 hours behind him. Lau was 3.5 hours behind him at the last time station. Alan hadn't gotten into here when Lau checked in. So
65 miles.
it's a 65-mile stretch.
If he's rested, he'll do better. I think the more sleep he gets, the better he'll do.
I think if we give him 3 hours, he'll mentally bring himself down with Stephan being too close.
Yeah.
I think an hour and a half gets him rested. We get him on the road. He'll be a lot better mentally.
He had a half hour of downtime, relaxing, taking a shower, getting ice on his feet, getting a massage. Then he went to sleep at 6. So he's been down for an hour.
So 7:30.
7:30, I think we ought to have him back on.
the road.
Yeah.
See that traction contraption?
Yeah, look at Jim's invention.
What is that?
Was the last night. I don't know exactly what happened, but he left. And then he needed more, and he thought the up and down.
So that's how we get his helmet on and when he forgets.
Sometimes the events along the way would take us by surprise, and one comes to mind when Alan would try to sleep an hour and a half, and that was a sleep cycle. But one time, I think maybe more than once, but one would remember he slept, didn't get a full sleep cycle, but on the bike and took off again, and it wasn't too long, and he just stopped in the middle of the road, and we tried to pull the van over when we could, but this time we just stopped and rushed out, and Alan just kind of had this blank look on his face, and all of a sudden he just wrapped his arms around me, and I didn't know if first I thought maybe I was getting a hug or something, but he was just all of a sudden dead weight. He was out cold, and we're like, oh, now what do we do? And we kind of hunched him over the handlebars for a little bit and prayed over him and pushed him off, and off he went again. But those things can take you by surprise.
This is day 8, about, what time is it? 7:14 race time. Alan's pretty hammered, he's pretty tired, so are we, but that's okay. We're here to support him, we're always going to be. We're going to pull up here, probably at the top of this hill, give him a vibe right now.
I need energy.
Okay.
I'm dying. What do you got?
Here's your apple juice.
Any glasses? No, thanks.
Oh, some nice white tablets. How many do you want?
One at a time.
Okay. Oh. Whoops, hold on. Okay, there's another one. You're doing good.
Really not. This is the worst I've felt yet, I think.
After we got through Oklahoma and we finally solved the neck issue with the traction contraption, as we called it, and we finally started to get into a little bit cooler temperatures in Arkansas in the evening, Alan kicked it into high gear. He was running in 3rd place at the time, but what we didn't realize is how much time he was making up on the 2nd place competitor, Rob Kish. Alan was literally riding 25, 30, 35 miles an hour at times.
We don't know how long Alan can keep this up. It's like a time trial. We're not in Tour de France here. We're in a 3,000-mile race. And we're wondering if Alan's going to burn himself out. It's fun, but boy, we're a little worried. We're trying to keep the fluids in him and keep his calories up, and it's starting to get morning when Alan usually starts dragging in the morning, and he becomes delirious on us. He doesn't know who he is, where he's at, other than he's chasing somebody. and I stand out on the running board, and I'm trying to go back through our history together and have him remember who I am, where I'm from, and that he's married and has kids. And a little frustrating for me, but exciting to try and bring him back to the real world, because he's off in a pedaling world. He's turning the world with his bike, he thinks.
Al, how are you feeling, Al?
Okay.
You know where we are, Al?
Arkansas.
Why are you racing this race, Al?
Because it's hard.
What's it called, Al?
RAAM.
Is this your first year in RAAM, or are you a veteran, Al?
First time.
That makes you a rookie?
Yep.
You're doing good, Al.
We're approaching about, 7 o'clock?
Yep. 7:10.
And we've been on the road forever. We've been on the road since Portland, Oregon, with absolutely no relief. And this fuzzy-haired guy here, with no hair but a gray beard, that I think he's gonna shave.
Oh, you are videos.
He was driving off the road, and I had to relieve him.
You had to quiz Al for about an hour just to keep him away. I mean, he was so delirious.
Al didn't know where we were at.
He didn't know what he was doing. He was racing.
Hey, Alan, we got to convince Miller that if you take second place and pass Kish before the finish line, that he'll shave his beard off.
I think he will. And then there's Larry.
He said that's been on him since
72.
1972. He's had that on. I don't know if he has a chin under there. Arkansas was a very difficult time. It was day 7, I believe, and that's where I went delusional. I'd read about this, I'd heard about it, but I've never experienced it. I was riding along, and next thing you know, I really didn't know why. Of course, I probably didn't know why I was riding back at the start line either. But it was just a really strange feeling for me. And, I started thinking about all the people back home, after they brought me back to reality anyway. And just all the people that were praying for me, supporting me, the sponsors that had, donated. I was just like, I got to keep going. I know it hurts, but, I didn't feel like I was really in it alone. Yeah, I'm the guy riding the bike, but I had a crew just pouring out their hearts. And, they were sleep deprived as well. And I just couldn't quit.
We started getting emails on my laptop from, Teresa and others. More people Alan knew, close friends, family, words of encouragement. And we would read those to Alan, particularly at night when it was very lonely, and they were a tremendous uplift to Alan, and we could see that in his writing style, and when he kept asking to hear the emails. That was middle of the race. 3/4 of the way through the race, we were getting emails from all over. People had seen the van in Oklahoma and gotten the web address. And so we were getting emails from people that avenue just saying what an inspiration Alan was, and going to his website and hearing his story and, his faith in God. And we got, just even more emails than I was even able to read on the trip. I particularly liked Jay's note. He sent one note. And it started out something to the effect of, Alan, I know exactly what you're going through. He goes, why, just today I got on my bicycle and rode down to Dairy Queen. And being that he only lives 5 blocks away, but I'd have to read his email note. But anyways, on his way to Dairy Queen, he had a hurt knee. He barely made it to Dairy Queen and downed his ice cream treat. And then he had to ride the whole way back. And so at the end of the note, he goes, Alan, I know exactly what you're going through. And so that was a real good lifter-upper note. We read that one about 2 a.m, so that was pretty good.
Okay, email note here from a Sherry Marusa. Says, a big hello and hallelujah
to Alan and his accomplishment to date. It is totally awesome to hear about this ride. Alan, go for it all the way. Alan, your bike trip across America, truck on your left. Says, Alan, your bike trip across America is a commitment of spirit. Many prayers are being said for you as you glorify and ride with our Lord. So find the strength in Him to continue the trip. You can do it, with 3 exclamation marks. There is no meaning to life except the meaning that man gives his life by the unfolding of his powers. Eric Fromm, I believe that's maybe who wrote that. A cheer from our younger days. Greg was just tapping me.
We were basically on a 36 to 40-hour schedule every day. You know, we'd crew with Alan, one team would be with Alan, and then the next time we'd transition would be 36 hours later because the second crew would have to sleep, they'd have to eat, they'd have to buy supplies, they'd have to come up, we'd have to transition and change information back and forth between the 2 crews to say how he was doing and what he needed and where he was going. And that took a lot more time than we anticipated. So we spent a lot of time on the road, and it was really tiring on the crew.
My crew was great. I mean, I can't begin to thank them enough to sacrifice their time and energy and just sanity to help me on this race. I mean, they took care of me, waited on me hand and foot outside of the Brigham City incident. But we chose a liquid diet, so I was consuming 8,000 to 10,000 calories a day, and they were keeping track of everything: sodium, water, everything. And I really never did have any nutritional problems or any stomach problems, but I had plenty of other problems to speak of. But no, my crew, for not having experience, unbelievable. They just did an outstanding job. I'd say better than some of the crews that had done this before. They took care of me.
During the race, 3,000-mile race, they offered certain races within a race, a preem they call it. I think that's what we were told to call it. We called it prime. It was called preem. And we slaughtered some of the language as rookies. But the one was from the Mississippi River to a town, Kusikukubla. I can't pronounce it. It's a real hard name to pronounce. But there was a $500 bonus, if you will, for this part of the race. And I didn't think Alan should be doing it. I thought getting to the end of the finish line, that was the goal, and to win this would be not necessary. But sure enough, Alan decided to go for it, and he took off. And during that time, one of the 4-person teams passed, but they passed real slow. Alan kept up with them for a good length of time, and I'm sure they wondered. But what I remember most was he came to this one stop sign, and we worried sometimes on stop signs, especially when he got sleepy, but he stopped, which was good. But then all of a sudden he just bunny hopped over to the stop sign and wrapped his arm around it, and he was out. He was just kind of blubbering, and we went up and to see if we could help and what to do. We didn't know what to do, and when the 4-person team was there, and they came over, one of the persons, to try to help, and they're looking at us like, what are you going to do? And we didn't know. And he was just blubbering, not making any sense at all. But finally, after just 30, 40 seconds, he wanted to know how many more miles to go to that time station. And it was about, I think, another 20 miles or so. And sure enough, back on the bike, and he was kind of weaving back and forth. And that's when I think when I came up with this saying that real friends don't let their friends ride RAAM.
Oh, of course not.
It was so surprising the night I got a call from Johnny Boswell from Kosciuszko, Mississippi. He explained that he had a radio station in Kosciuszko and that they had been watching Alan's progress. And the whole town was waiting for Alan to come through Mississippi. It was really cool to hear that they had used Acts 20:24 as their devotions one morning and spent that time in prayer, praying for Alan physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. When Alan got done with the race, he told me that so many times throughout the race, since he'd heard from Peter that they were rooting for him, that he thought about them and that there were brothers and sisters in Mississippi actually praying for him. He felt kind of bad when he got there because he wasn't sure if he had the mental capacity to really show them how much their prayers meant. Johnny and Maureen were such a blessing, and they definitely helped get Alan to the finish line.
After Kosciuszko, Mississippi, things really got bad. It was so hot, the humidity. I never experienced humidity. and it was just sucking every bit of life out of me. I felt like I couldn't breathe, even complained that my bike wouldn't roll, which actually did turn out to be a brake rubbing against the wheel. We won't talk about that. But boy, things really got bad in Alabama. I couldn't sit anymore. I literally was so raw in the, shall we say, nether region, that I just couldn't sit. The pain was indescribable. And I knew I had like 300 miles to go. And my crew, again, was right there for me. They were telling me, they were just filling me with confidence. You can do it. If somebody can stand up and ride 300 miles, it's you. And again, thinking about all the people supporting me and praying for me. It got really hard there in Alabama, and it was about to get harder that night.
We're at time station 47.
47?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. My mouth hurts so bad. I've been using Oragel to keep the pain away. But when you put peanut butter in a numb mouth, you kind of don't know where it ends up. I'm pretty much delusional now. The only reason I know where I'm at is because I have a little sheet here that says Scuba, Mississippi, which is 251 miles from the finish line. Now, 250 miles used to seem like, oh, a good training ride. Now it seems like an impossible hurdle. I'm extremely tired, it's extremely hot, and I want to go home to my wife and kids. Is this the time to remind him he paid good money to do all that? I understand why that guy dropped out at 130 miles to go. At home, sitting in my couch, sitting on my wind trainer, pedaling away, working towards a goal, I'm thinking, that guy's a flippin' moron. Now, I know. This is the toughest race in the world. I will never do it again.
What place you in right now, Alan?
I'm in third.
That means he's the third toughest racer in the world.
I mean, I'm the third dumbest racer in the world. And another thing I forgot. I need rest. I haven't known anything about where I've been. I've been thinking really weird things. I want to be with my wife and kids. I don't want to be here. I want this to be over. So it's apparently the hardest year Fashion's ever done it. I would have rather done it on an easier year. I want to go home. And I want to finish. And I don't think I can do either. Okay. Hey, buddy. Hey, you.
Alan's firmly in third place right now.
The most memorable moment of RAAM for me, and maybe even for Alan, he might not remember it all, was the moment when he had just crashed, falling asleep on his bike, and not even having the crash wake him up. I was thinking, oh my God, he's so close, but we're so far away, and we know this guy's on our tail. And are we going to be able to make it through this? He desperately needs a lot of sleep. Nobody can, fall asleep on their bike and just take a little nap and then keep going.
All of a sudden he weaves way over to the right, and we kind of whoa, what's going on here? That kind of alerted us. And then he go onto the other side, and we started to shout. And when he got close to the shoulder, he corrected, came to about the middle of the lane, and kind of rolled to stop. He was going up a hill during this time. Kind of rolled to stop, put his foot down, and the next thing he'd do, he's tumbling over backwards, landed flat out on the pavement.
So 15, 20 minutes of sleep, Lau passes Alan, and 5 minutes after he passes him, Alan wakes up. We'd had him in the van, and he was sleeping, but he wakes up on his own. We didn't wake him up. He did it on his own. He said, "Where's Lau?" 2 words out of his mouth, "Where's Lau?" And I turned to Jim and I said, "Jim, Alan, Lau passed you 5 minutes ago. Get me on my bike. I gotta go." That was it. He was up. Adrenaline was running through his veins. He knew that he had to get up, and he knew he had to go. He knew he needed sleep, yet he couldn't afford to take the time to sleep. He had to go.
We said, "No, Alan, you need to rest. You need to rest." And we worked on that for 2 or 3 minutes, and he wasn't buying it. And so then Larry said, "Okay, you got to tell me who you are and what's going on here, and you got to get a little bit more aware." And so Larry started asking him some questions, and eventually he went from this kind of a panic state that he was having when he woke up to, "I know who I am, I know why I'm biking, and I'm got to get out there and I got a bike."
Said, "All right, well, let's get him on the bike, let him go." Off like a flash, he was gone, and within 3 or 4 minutes he'd caught Lau. Lau looked at him like a deer looking into the headlights, didn't know what had happened. He didn't realize that he'd passed Alan. Alan shot past him going up this hill, and Lau didn't know what hit him.
One of the cardinal sins they tell us about this race is never let your rider get passed while he's on his bike. And that's exactly what we had just done to Stephan Lau.
His crew was yelling at him, mach schnell, go faster, go faster. And we looked back after Alan passed him, and he was all over the road. He was basically absolutely defeated mentally, because he didn't know he was in 3rd place. Now he had it confirmed that this guy that was in 4th place, he just passed, just went shooting past him up this steep hill, and there's no way that he knew he was not going to be able to win and get 4th place at that point. That was the most memorable moment in RAAM, and I will never, ever forget it.
Somehow we made it through the last night of RAAM. The finish line still seemed a long ways away, but got back on the bike, and I was actually riding really strong. Stephan Lau was an extreme competitor, and he kind of gave me a run for my money that night, but I was just not going to slow down this time. I was going to pour on the gas, and we were going strong. For all I knew, he was trying to chase me, but he was pretty much spent at that time and didn't have that in him either, but I was paranoid.
Just outside of Oakville, and they both ended up taking a sleep break. Now they're both back on the bikes.
We better take a couple recaps.
Hey, Alan's aware enough that he's
Where's Bragg?
and keep his neuralites levels high enough to finish this out. Florida state line. There you go, guys.
Right.
He's made it to Florida.
Now the
About
finish line.
59 miles to go, as best we can calculate from here. Good job, Alan. You're going to finish this sucker. Way to go.
When I saw the Florida state line, you can't imagine what the feeling is. I mean, here I am. I knew it was about 60 miles from the end, and I knew at that moment, in fact, that was probably the first moment in the race, that I was like, thank you, Jesus. I'm going to make this race. I'm not going to let myself or anybody else that had supported me down. And my crew was there. They cheered me on, and that was just an unbelievable feeling. Second, probably only to the actual finish line.
About 19 miles away, guys?
Yes.
About 19 miles away from the finish line. I'm sure it seems like it's going to take forever to get there, but we're making progress. We're still riding strong. It's very hot, very muggy, and he's going through a ton of fluids right now. He has gone down through about 5 bottles of Gatorade and a couple bottles of water in the last hour and a half or two. And that's a lot more than he normally.
What really amazed me in this whole event was the last 100 miles of the race. Alan, his neck muscles were gone. His his rear end was basically toast. It was as raw as could be. It was hurting to sit up. It was hurting to sit down. It was hurting to stand up. It hurt just doing nothing. Yet the adrenaline that was going through him that last 80 to 100 miles, and knowing that he had a real solid chance of getting third place, he sat down on that bike for that last 80 miles and just blocked everything out and rode really, really hard.
We had to call in ahead of time to let the officials know we were coming, and a film crew met and got in front of Alan, and I think they actually were getting in his way. He was headed for the finish line, and he was, as we were saying, smoking.
It was funny because he was riding his normal pace for the last 85 miles or so. He was going so fast that the film crew couldn't keep up with him because of the traffic on the bridge, and he kept getting past him. And I was talking to somebody after the race was over, and they said that, it was amazing how fast Alan came across. They were used to coming over every few minutes or so. They'd get a call that somebody was approaching the finish line, and they said, "Well, we've got a few minutes to get our stuff together and get over there and be there when they come in." Well, Alan was there, and they barely got in there, and they said, normally we have 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour to wait for him. Alan was there, and inside, they'd only been there for 5 minutes. He rode that strong the last leg of the race, and it was incredible.
Being at the finish line was so incredible. My heart was just pounding, waiting for him to come in.
Larsen! Congratulations! You are a finisher in the 2002 Insight Race Across America!
When he got there, I was just filled with so many emotions. I was so excited to see him, and yet it was so hard to see him. So tired, so skinny. He was like a skeleton when I hugged him.
He is congratulated by his wife and crew. An emotional moment for this rookie rider.
It was hard to see him with that traction contraption, duct tape everywhere, but I was just glad to see him. I saw a man of perseverance, and I saw a man that in my book is the greatest man alive. There's no one like him.
I was with Jim and Larry, Alan's brother, and we all choked up a little bit, and especially Larry, Alan's brother. He was quite emotional that his baby brother had made it, and I think it was a proud moment for all of us.
I broke down and I started crying. That's unusual for me. I'm not that kind of a guy, but the physical and the mental exertion throughout the course of that last 10 days just finally took its toll, and it was all let go in 1 minute, and I just broke down and started crying at that finish line. I kind of composed myself when I got over the podium and watched Alan take his awards and things, but that was a pretty emotional time, and that's something that again I'll never forget.
This was a hard race for Dad, and that I missed him at the start line, and it was great to see him.
Hugs for his young daughter. Crew members, can we get the bike out and get a chair for him?
Daddy.
Tears of joy for this rookie Pacific Northwest rider. Warm welcome from our crowd here on the beach.
I missed him so much. It had been 10 days, 1 hour, and 5 minutes since I'd left Oregon. And I was so happy to be done. I wasn't in that much pain, but the pain was going to come. The recovery period was probably worse than the ride itself. But it was over, and I did it.
I've been covering this my second year and researching this for a long time. I have never seen a guttier, braver performance. Alan, you are truly the rookie of this year. How do you feel, sir?
Overwhelmed. I wasn't going to give up. My crew wasn't going to let me give up. My wife. Come over here, sweet. Hey, we put too much into this. It was a dream. It became a nightmare, and now it's a dream again. And it was my goal to do well. I wasn't going to be content with just riding across the country. I knew I could do that. I wanted to push the limit, see what I could do. And I wanted to be Rookie of the Year. Actually, I wanted to win. I remember emailing Lon, it's like, I want to win. What do you think the chances are of a rookie winning? And he emailed me back, well, why don't you just try the team RAAM first, you know? And, you know, very wise words, but it wasn't good enough for me. I'm too much of a competitor. And Stephan behind me, he's coming in soon. We pushed each other beyond what two individuals should. It was kind of strange this morning because we were fighting, we were pushing, it's like he went down. Okay, I could go to sleep, you know. So and then he's going. Oh, I got to go now. And then I'd heard that. Okay, well, he kind of threw in the towel because he was like 10 miles behind me, and I was like, really? Okay, so right in the last 80 miles or so, he's on your tail again. And I was like, oh, this guy, he's just like me. And so I started hammering it, even though I haven't been able to sit for the last 350 miles. I just had a lot of problems, which you would expect in a race like this. And especially being a rookie, you don't get the experience to know. But obviously, I have a crew that were willing to work through any problems. I mean, just, when there's a problem, they'd fix it, or do their best to fix it. And
well,
the
Alan,
seat was the hard thing.
One of the most poignant things you did for us in Portland before the start of the race, and I want to bring it out now because you are and your family a man of faith, a family of faith, Acts 20:24. Can you share that with us?
I'll try. If only I consider my life worth nothing. If only I may finish the race and complete the task the Lord Jesus has given me, the task of testifying to the gospel of God's grace.
Wow. Alan Larsen, unbelievable. You were up in Portland the night before the race, still barking out orders and requests from your crew at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. We said, he should go to sleep. We did. Are you going to go to sleep soon?
Yeah, but the odd thing is, it's like, as tired as you are in this race, at least for me, I don't know how the other people are, my crew didn't have to wake me up. It was like, I'm just like, okay, I got to go. and I don't know. So it's like, I fear for my wife tonight. It's like, I'll be, where are you? Like last night especially.
Am I the best Earth woman?
I had really strange delusions and stuff. But, yeah, so I'm sure I'll sleep, but don't be surprised if I pop up thinking I got to get back on my bike.
I know I don't know what you've gone through. Nobody does unless they've done it. But we're going to do some other photo opportunities, get you in front of the finish banner there, take some photo ops. There's a lot of people here who want to take more pictures of you. But Alan Larsen, on behalf of OLN, unbelievable, a very motivational performance. God bless you.
Thank you.
There he is.
As third place men's finisher, plus he won the Preem, which is actually a race within the race. At certain points along the route, we actually have a time trial where somebody will race from one town to another town. This is maybe 120 miles. It's open to all competitors. So even if you're in 10th place and you have the fastest time over that distance, you can still win an extra $500. And for as bad as Alan said he felt, he actually had the fastest time from the Mississippi River to Kosciuszko, Mississippi, even faster than Wolfgang Traction, our race.
Here's our check. What's our amount, Lon?
It's $3,000 from the Insight Race Across America.
$3,000. Not bad at all.
Now everybody asks me, are you going to do it again? And if they'd asked me at the finish line, I would have said absolutely not. But it didn't take long till I realized that, I had a lot of problems. There was so much time off the bike. We just made a lot of rookie mistakes. Between my neck and my rear end, we lost lots of hours. In addition to that, we just had some stops that I shouldn't have. I didn't need rest. We just stopped. So I'd have to say that even though I did very well, especially for a rookie, I feel that I could do it better. And I think that I just have to go out there and try again. So yes, we're going for next year. If we can find the sponsorship to get us there, I'm going to try to win.
think we should buy stock in bag balm.
So what is that used for?
This. It's for cow udders. See that little sign right there? There's cow udders. Alan uses it to rub himself so he doesn't get raw.
Where does he rub himself?
Ask Ogden, Utah. Plenty of them saw it. He gave him a thumbs up though, so I don't think he really minded. Again. And then again. And he slowly reaches back. Can't do it. Bag balm was originally designed for cow udders. When people are being milked. Anyhow, you can milk anything with nipples. I went up to it. I went up to the little. I went up to Geppetto, and I go. I massaged Geppetto's mom's, teeth into a little saucer. And then I fed it. I grabbed Geppetto. That's what I named it. And I fed Geppetto, and I raised him. And yeah, you can pretty much milk anything with nipples.
I have nipples.
Do you want me to milk you?
I think we'll be able to sell this one.